So today we're going to talk about how to set up a virtual event within your RunSignup race. Specifically, how can you set up a virtual challenge within RunSignup? So an example of a virtual challenge is having participants over the course of a month try to run the most distance or maybe complete the most minutes and or hours of activity, whether that's cycling, running, walking, hiking, paddling, swimming, whatever it may be. Now, one thing for challenge events is participants don't have to submit their results in one go. So the confusion that some people have is they'll wait until the end of the month and make one big submission of all of their distance they've run for that particular month. Within the RunSignup challenge system, participants can submit each activity they've done for each day. And when they continue to submit each and every day, RunSignup will tally up their total distance into their specific result. So if I run 5 miles today and 10 miles tomorrow, my result on RunSignup is going to show that I've run 15 miles. So in RunSignup, this can easily be done. And in our example, we're going to go through a very basic, simple challenge where we're going to have a month-long challenge, and we want all of our participants to submit as many running miles as they can do. So to set this up on the RunSignup dashboard, if you head to your race wizard, the first thing we have to do is create your virtual challenge event. This allows participants to register for that particular event and then allows for you to be able to set up some of the back-end stuff specifically for that challenge event. So head into your race wizard and scroll down and select add another event. And in our case, we're going to call this the month-long running challenge. And be sure to set your type to be virtual race and challenge. And we are going to let our participants submit their own results. And what you also want to do is, because you are a challenge event, you also want to check on that this virtual event is a challenge event. For our accepting submission starting and until date, we're going to say participants have the whole month of July of 2025 to submit their mileage to RunSignup. So you'll want to have your starting submission be July 1st, 2025, and your ending date be July 31st, 2025. So once you set up your accept and end submission date, go ahead and save that. Go through and continue on to the wizard portion, whether it's setting your distance for your challenge and or setting your registration periods for your challenge event. In our case, we're going to go ahead and skip that and head right to our race dashboard to continue with the virtual results setup. So once you're in your dashboard, select Race Day Tools, head into Virtual Challenge Results, Configure Virtual Results. And so now you can see by default you have your month-long running challenge already essentially half set up for challenge. So you can see we're accepting submissions from July 1st to July 31st of 2025. Participants are going to submit distances in miles. Now, if we select into the virtual result settings and we scroll down, you can double check some of the default settings that we've already checked on for you. One of the things you want to take a look at is this result set. So by default, we will automatically create you a result set based off the name of your event, which means participants that are going to be submitting their results are going to be submitting to this particular result set. If for whatever reason you want to create a whole nother result set, you can do this here by clicking the drop down and selecting create new result set. Though I would highly recommend against that, as most often than not, the default result set will work just fine for all events. Continue scrolling down. These are some of the activity fields that participants are going to be able to submit. So by default, we're going to allow participants to submit times. If you want to allow participants to submit their elevation gain, you can do that here. And we also want to allow participants to submit distance they've completed, so we're going to have that checked on. If for whatever reason your specific challenge event is in kilometers, for example, instead of having distance in miles, you can say distance in kilometers. If you're doing maybe a track-specific challenge and you want it to be in meters, you can also do that as well. And maybe if you're doing a football stadium-specific challenge, you can do it in yards. But we're going to stick with miles for our example. So next we take a look at the accept activity date starting and dates until setting. So what we would recommend is setting these dates to match your accept result submission starting periods. So in our case, we're going to set this to July 1st, 2025 until July 31st, 2025. What this setting specifically prevents participants from doing is when they're submitting their result to RunSignup, they have the ability to select a specific date they completed that particular activity for. So in our case, since we want people to be doing their activities in the month of July, we're going to prevent people from saying, when I submit my result on July 2nd, I'm going to backdate my activity and say, but I did this activity on June 25th and I did 50 miles. Because they're saying their activity was done on June 25th and outside of this particular window, we're not going to accept that submission because it's outside of the activity date starting. So next, if you come down here, you can set up some of your min and max allowed time. This is pretty straightforward for a single activity. If you want to set a minimum amount of time they have to submit, or maybe a maximum amount of time they can submit, you can do that here. You can do the same for their tally, which is going to be their distance in miles. Maybe you want to prevent someone from submitting a 400-mile activity. You can do that here. And then continue scrolling down. There's going to be a couple of sort options you can customize for your specific result set. The main setting that you really want to take a look at is the how should results be sorted. In our case, this is going to be a distance challenge. So we want to see who can run the most distance, the most miles in the span of a month. So we want our results to be sorted by greatest distance with time tiebreaker. So the participants that have submitted the most distance to RunSignup will be at the top, while participants that have submitted maybe one or two activities with the least amount of distance will be at the bottom. And then if there's a tie in distance, it'll be broken by whoever has the fastest time.
Yeah, and for this type of challenge, you wouldn't want to do lowest time, because then if someone did 1 mile as opposed to someone else who did 500 miles, obviously the 1 mile person's probably going to do that in a lower amount of time. So they would be listed first, which would not be what you wanted.
And then there's some additional settings at the bottom with regards to allowing participants to quickly submit their results, or if you wanted to approve specific activity submissions, you can do that here. And we typically recommend just keeping with what our default is. So we'll go ahead and keep our default and select save here. So once you do that, that's really all the setup you need for a basic challenge event. Now there's a whole host of more advanced features like activity types, milestone badges that you can set up to really engage with the audience. But in our example, we just wanted to focus on more of a basic challenge event and how to get the base set up in RunSignup.